Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you so much for stopping by. I think I'm going to struggle Thursday and Friday because I'm off to Johannesburg, and I'll tell you about that later on, but I'm looking forward to that, so I might not appear until Monday, but if I can, I will. I'd like to thank Mike Dutoit of Liberty Live for the invitation yesterday to speak with his Liberty Network. Many interesting points were made. Mike said one of the key advantages is the advantage of knowing in complex, fractured markets, and I'd agree with that. And Saki Makazoma, who's the chairman of Liberty and the deputy chairman of Standard Bank, made some interesting remarks, spoke about the new culture of now amongst the new generation. Spoke to complexity versus simplicity and tradition versus innovation, and very interesting, and of course I had a chance to speak as well. Home thoughts were triggered by the Pope's comments. It took me back to Rumi: we come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. The little one made it into the rounders team. Mum told me last night, and when she woke this morning, Hannah asked, "Dad, did you hear?" And I said, "That's just the best news I've ever heard. It's fantastic," and I hung about it just to make sure she understood how impressed I really was and how I appreciated the import of this news. And then for good measure I mentioned it again just as we both left for the day. I'll put up a photograph of her horse riding at the Fairmont in Mount Kenya, and another one of her horse riding along the lake shore in Lake Elmantaita with her mother. The Pope said that theories of evolution and the Big Bang are real, and God is not a magician with a magic wand. Giovanni Bignami, a professor and president of Italy's National Institute for Astrophysics, told the Italian news agency, "The Pope's statement is significant. We are the direct descendants from the Big Bang that created the universe. Evolution came from creation." And in point of fact, the fine-tuning required to create our universe is so fine, it's celestial. I'll put up a photograph of the Pope, a selfie. And if you are interested in the fine-tuning of the universe, there's no better writer to read than Martin Rees, and particularly his book, Just Six Numbers, The Deep Forces That Shape the Universe. And very simple, easy to read, easy to understand, and it's extraordinary in the mathematical nature of the fine-tuning. I'll put up a photograph of the Milky Way. The Zambian President Michael Sata, otherwise known as King Cobra because of his venomous tongue, has died in London. He had been receiving treatment for an undisclosed illness, and these reports have been confirmed. And it's an interesting scenario in Zambia because the vice president is a white man, and the question is, how will that play out? I think it would be tremendous if Guy Scott managed to become the first post-independence white president in an African country. This headline caught my attention: Afghanistan's Ghani visits China in first official trip. And I'm sure the US will find that interesting. Turkish officials, bet on Assad to fall, and when they lost, instead of backing off, they are doubling down. This is a report in Yahoo. Turkish officials believed a year and a half ago they could control the jihadis, but they played with fire. This was a policy of sectarianism, and they got into something they couldn't control, and that is why we are here. Spectators, this is a photograph carried on Bloomberg in Chincoteague. Watch the fireball from the explosion of the unmanned Orbital Sciences Corporation's Antares rocket and Cygnus cargo capsule seconds after liftoff from Wallops Island on Tuesday, October 28th. Kim Jong-un has been visiting an orphanage in Pyongyang this week. I'll put up a photograph of that. And Egypt is now ordering residents along the Gaza border out. Homes are to be demolished in order to create a buffer zone. Coming to international markets, global consumer confidence has improved. India is the most bullish. This is according to Nielsen. Consumer confidence in the US jumped in the third quarter, improved globally. India remained the most bullish consumer market. Italy the most pessimistic, saying that in North America and Europe, worries about jobs have been replaced by rising worries about war and terrorism. European countries generally were the most pessimistic, reflecting the conflict in Ukraine, faltering growth and the risk of deflation. Britain and Germany saw consumer confidence improve. Nielsen Global Consumer Confidence Index rose 1 point in the third quarter to 98. According to the survey, has been rising steadily since the first quarter of 2012. Latest reading headed closer to the 100 mark that signals optimism among consumers. US consumers' seventh most upbeat globally, score rising 4 points to 108, and that's going to surge because of the sharp fall in the oil price and the added stimulus that's going to add. US consumers are now feeling far more confident than in previous years of the recovery due to consistently good job market trends reflected in steady payroll growth and falling unemployment over the course of 2014. Australia saw the biggest increase in confidence from the previous quarter by 12 points, followed by Slovenia and Thailand. Interesting. Chile posted the sharpest drop in confidence. I wonder what happened there. But essentially, the bottom line is the lower oil price is going to boost the consumer globally in a big way. Currency markets, the euro 127.36. The dollar has declined 0.7% in the previous 3 sessions. Dollar index 85.40 trading heavy ahead of the FOMC statement, where they're going to wind up quantitative easing. Japanese yen 108.12, Swissy 0.9468, pound above 161, 161.38, Aussie making headway 0.8865, India rupee 61.306, South Korean won at 1047.03, touched 1045.58, which is the strongest level since September 26th. The Real advanced against all of its 31 peers, gaining 2.4% to close at 246. Remember, it hit a multi-year low the day before. Egyptian pound 714.99, and the South African rand a little bit further, 1085.67. The dollar has gained 6% this year and is the best performer of 10 developed nation currencies tracked by Bloomberg. Yen has added 3%, krona has dropped 8.3%, euro has fallen 2.6%. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. It's trading a little soft of late, but headed a lot higher in my view. Dollar index down 0.7% in October, first losing month since June. This is all about traders cutting bets of an early Fed rate hike. The odds of rates going up by October 2015 are at 50% from 85% on September 30th. I think we'll have a rate hike before October 2015. Euro dollar, that's had a little bit of a short covering rally. I think that's going to fall away again. 128 is sort of recent trading highs that we've seen, and that's the level to keep an eye on. Peter Sands, the CEO of Standard Chartered, faces pressure from shareholders after lenders' stock slumped to the lowest in more than 5 years. And actually, I noticed he was a little preoccupied last week at a Kapinski function I attended where he was the chief guest. I'll put up an image of him where he said Africa is one of the best performing parts of our bank. Crude oil, $81.72. I think it will break down again. A little bit of short covering ahead of the FOMC meeting. And potentially a little bit of slippage in the dollar. I'll put up a 1-month chart. I think we're going to drop, outlier objective is 50. 60 I think is eminently feasible. I wrote about this on the 13th of October when I said who kneecapped crude oil. I said the US administration has turned a price slasher. And like in Alfred Hitchcock's totemic movie Psycho, oil has been sliced up real good. The US has flooded the oil market, and the commodity is now a geopolitical spear. It is the US that is the new price setter for the oil markets, and this is a deep and important geopolitical development. The new price levels will have immediate and enormous geopolitical and financial knock-on effects. Russia, Iran in Africa, Nigeria, Venezuela in Latin America. It will place intolerable pressure on the oil producers, and particularly those operating from a higher base price. And I said my point is that Barack Obama has taken control of the crude oil cockpit. He is in charge of the airplane. He has control of all the instruments, and it has been a wild ride for the last few weeks, which could get a whole lot wilder. I'll put up a 6-month chart for you to have a look at as well. Gold was last trading at 1229.875, probably bounces a little bit if the FOMC statement is soft. The Real, I'll put up a 1-month chart. You can see it's been trading all over the place. Not difficult to know why, because of the election, but it got oversold. And that's why we got that rebound. Very interesting piece in Bloomberg about Dubai insisting the boom is not a bubble this time round. Awash in fantasia, this metropolis of glass and steel sprouting from the barren sands of the Arabian Peninsula often seems nothing more than an illusion born of desert heat. Never was Dubai more mirage-like than 5 years ago, after the global financial crisis crushed what had been a bastion of wealth and growth. House prices plunged as much as 20%. Half of the city's $582 billion in construction projects were either placed on hold or abandoned, their incomplete steel skeletons left poking from the sand, a 21st century Ozymandias. Now Dubai is booming again. To understand why, journey 20 miles from the Dubai Mall to a part of the city few tourists ever see. Here, if you pass through the security gates at Jebel Ali Port, you're treated to another mesmerizing mechanical ballet, one less ephemeral and arguably more important to the city-state's fate than the Dubai fountain's dancing waters. Towering gantry cranes sidle up to 1,200 feet long container ships bound for Mumbai or Singapore or Rotterdam. They delicately pluck containers from the tarmac, hoist them into the air in a single fluid motion, and stack them like children's blocks onto ship decks. The port is a crucial pillar in the efforts of Dubai's ruler Sheikh Mohammed to ensure that this time around growth rests on a more stable footing, moving away from real estate and leaning instead on trade and shipping as well as finance and tourism. Dubai is one of 7 principalities that make up the UAE, has only minimal oil reserves. Instead, the city-state has positioned itself as the hinge connecting Asia to the rest of the world, the gateway city for the fast-growing frontier markets of Africa, and a safe haven for investors shunning an arc of conflict that stretches from Libya to Afghanistan. Then he's describing events post-2008. His first task was to persuade creditors to give Dubai enough time to figure out exactly how much it owed. Lenders were suspicious that Dubai was trying to cover up the extent of its financial woes. There was no duplicity on Dubai's part, Al-Shaibani says. The city simply couldn't keep up with its own growth. Some banks were concerned we weren't sharing information, he says. In reality, we didn't have the information to share. 10 billion cash injection from its next-door neighbor, Abu Dhabi. A year of tense negotiations with creditors. Some restructuring of $23.5 billion of liabilities in November 2010. Since then, the rebound has been dramatic. As of late October, the Dubai Financial Market General Index was 3 times higher than its 2009 low, making it among the 10 best performing stock markets in the world during that period, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. GDP expanded 4.6% in 2013. Government expects it to top 5% this year. Dubai has profited from its neighbors' misfortunes. The Libyans, the Syrians, the Egyptians, the Iranians, they're all here, says Patrick Lord, MD of Control Risks. It's become the place to come, if not physically, then for their money to come. Even so, the UAE's participation in US-led airstrikes on Islamic State strongholds in Syria and Iraq may jeopardize Dubai's haven status. Christopher Davidson, interesting fellow to follow on Twitter, researcher at Durham University in the UK, who specializes in the Gulf states, says of the UAE they are no longer influential neutrals and are instead becoming a frontline state in a war that could engulf the whole region, he says. However, Dubai's economic model, according to Christopher, is not in immediate danger. Setting its sights to the west, Dubai is now looking to profit from Africa's successes. Once moribund economies from Ghana to Angola to Kenya have grown at more than 5% since 2009, and a rising number of European, US and Asian businesses are putting their African headquarters in Dubai. You can't run Africa out of London or French Africa out of Paris anymore like it used to be in the old days, says Fadi Gandour of Aramex. Today there's a competitor, and it is here in Dubai. The Jebel Ali port is one reason. Dubai's air connections are another. State-owned Emirates started out with 2 Boeing 727s in 1985, now flies to 140 destinations around the globe, including 24 African cities. In the first 3 months of 2014, Dubai International Airport surpassed London's Heathrow, handling more than 18 million travellers compared with Heathrow's 16 million. Another airport is under construction. This is an $80 billion Dubai World Central Al Maktoum International Airport. Will have 5 runways and capacity for 160 million passengers annually. Gandour says Dubai is the Middle East's only plug-and-play city. Ubiquitous posters and billboards depicting the Gutra-framed visage of Sheikh Mohammed lend the city an Orwellian undercurrent. So does the vast panopticon of surveillance cameras. Civil rights and privacy advocates say cameras ostensibly for public safety are used to track and intimidate political dissidents and labour rights advocates. There's talking about Dubai having acquired a reputation for money laundering, which it has. In 2009, Hazrat Omi Zakilwal, Afghanistan's finance minister, told a conference of US customs officials that a joint US-Afghan study had found that every day $10 million in cash, much of it from Afghanistan's heroin trade, was smuggled in briefcases from Kabul to Dubai. For Dubai, geography is destiny. It sits within easy reach of 3 regions, the Gulf, the Indian subcontinent, and Africa, each with a $2 trillion a year economy. The government aims to double the number of visitors to 20 million by the time it hosts World Expo 2020. But saying Dubai faces increased competition from a crop of imitators. Last year, Oman opened a deep-water port at Duqm that will try to draw business away from Jebel Ali. Istanbul is marketing itself as an alternative logistics and financial hub, with Turkish Airlines now flying to more worldwide destinations than any other carrier. Qatar Airways is also challenging Emirates for business travellers, while Doha is promoting itself as a financial centre, and definitely they've built a super airport in Doha. Al-Shabani says none of this worries him. It's not just about physical infrastructure, he says. Much of Dubai's success is due to what he calls software, people and systems that, for example, ensure a ship at port can be turned around quickly or a legal dispute resolved fast and fairly. In this regard, Al-Shabani says Dubai has a decades-long head start. He might not be wrong. So far, Dubai's "if you build it, they will come" strategy seems to be working. The city is packed with tourists. More people visit the Dubai Mall each year than the Niagara Falls, the Eiffel Tower, and Disney World combined. The airport boasts the largest terminal in the world. At Jebel Ali, the cranes pirouette round the clock, and at the Dubai fountain, the music plays on and on And I wrote on the 24th of February that Dubai is the real transit state, a connection point in an interconnected century. I said in Dubai I sat and listened to the destinations. I appreciated how Dubai has made itself an intersection point in this 21st century world. Absolutely any and every destination in the world was seemingly called as I waited for mine. I once characterized Kenya as a transit state, but in fact Dubai is the real transit state, a connection point in an interconnected century. I've seen 30-year-old photographs of Dubai, and it was a blank canvas. And that took me back to Victor Hugo, who said there is nothing like a dream to create the future. And then I referred to a report I'd read where the authors characterized a key trait of 21st century success as being a quality termed global fluency. Global fluency is the level of global understanding, competence, practice, and reach a metropolitan area exhibits in an increasingly interconnected economy. And I was saying in that article, both Dubai and Geneva are globally fluent. I'll put up a photograph of the Burj Khalifa that I took one morning, and another one of the shark in the Dubai Mall. Coming to Africa, Daily Maverick has put out an interesting article saying Renamo doubled their share of the vote. How did they pull it off? Civil war, that's how. It's an unorthodox and dangerous political strategy that has paid off handsomely for Renamo. Dhlakama has backed himself into a corner from which there is no obvious exit, wrote veteran Mozambique researcher Joseph Hanlon in late 2013, a conclusion shared by most analysts, but Dhlakama found a way out. In fact, the opposite was true. Everywhere Dhlakama went, he received a hero's welcome. Unlike Frelimo rallies, where crowds were lured by the promise of free merchandise and celebrity entertainment, Renamo rallies were chaotic and disorganized, but still people came, waited for hours just to get a glimpse of the man who had somehow turned himself into a beacon of hope for the huge sections of society that feel marginalized by Frelimo's lengthy rule. Dhlakama has won admiration by apparently forcing Frelimo to make political concessions it has been resisting for decades. He even seems to be enjoying, perhaps unjustly, much of the credit for the peace that has come just in time for the election. Emerging from hiding only after the peace agreement was signed was a clever move that brought his supporters out in droves to welcome him as a hero, wrote journalist Kate Reed for African Arguments. The election results bear this out. Renamo garnered 36% of the presidential vote, more than double their proportion from 2009. The parties challenging the results and alleging that the vote was tampered with, it is a dramatic return to form, and positions Renamo once again as the most serious challenger to Frelimo's electoral stranglehold, as unlikely as it may seem. Renamo's return to the bush had proved to be a most effective campaign strategy. And I concluded by saying Dhlakama plotted to good effect in the Gorongosa Mountains. I'll put up a photograph of him. Another one of the Samora Machel statue in the Praca de Independencia in Maputo that I took nearly 900 days ago. And finally, a photograph of the poster at the Africa Rising conference I attended in Maputo earlier this year. Apparently, there have been huge Burkina Faso marches against the President Compaoré. Tens of thousands of people have protested in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, against moves to extend the president's 27-year rule. Security forces fired tear gas to disperse protesters who hurled stones and burnt tires. I'll put up an image of protesters who were comparing Compaoré to the deadly virus Ebola that has hit other West African states. France stepped in and said Burkina Faso must keep to African rules on political change, referring to the African Union Charter on Democracy and Good Governance. Article 23 specifies clearly that constitutional revisions aiming to prevent political change are banned. This was Foreign Ministry spokesman Romain Nadal telling reporters President Hollande had sent a letter to President Compaoré on October the 7th outlining this position. He said, Breaking the charter could lead to sanctions. The security forces have played a key role in helping President Compaore to stay in power. Botswana's President Ian Khama was sworn in for his second term Tuesday after winning re-election with a reduced majority, pledging to intensify efforts to diversify the economy and eradicate poverty. It's one of the most stable African countries. Dollar rand, firm is still 10.8562. I think we might get a little bit of a pop, but that will be it. Egyptian pound has barely budged, 714.97. Egyptian stock market up 28.92%, popped to 1.11% higher yesterday, but it's down 1,067 points since July the 4th. Central Bank of Nigeria said it's limiting foreign currency borrowings by lenders in Africa's largest economy as it seeks to reduce their exchange risks. Overseas currencies should not exceed 75% of shareholders' funds. Net open position of overall foreign currency assets and liabilities are not to exceed 20% of shareholders' funds, it said. Of course, the collapse in oil prices, about which I referred previously, is weighing big time on African oil producers such as Nigeria, and I said on October the 27th, such as Nigeria, where the Naira has been wobbling. Petroleum Economist has got a piece about Angola and Nigeria, talking about the fact that they're finding themselves trapped between fracturing shale rocks in a hard economic place. The US no longer importing light sweet crude of the type that Nigeria produces. Demand for oil in North America has plummeted. Angola has also lost US buyers for its lighter crudes, though it can still find a market in the US for the heavy and sour varieties it produces. The Ghana Stock Exchange is up 3.589% year to date. Over the weekend, I looked at the African economies and I was mentioning that Ebola has Cote d'Ivoire surrounded on all sides. And I was looking at the cocoa price, which was up 15% year to date when I wrote the piece. Bulka, the CEO of Nestle, was on high alert. Bloomberg reported that Ebola at borders means restless nights for Ivorian minister, but I noticed the cocoa price fell just under 1% yesterday. Vodacom says Empower users have doubled in the past 3 months to about 900,000 customers. This is about giving people savings options on the M-Pesa platform. I found this interesting. Revenue generated from pay TV products in sub-Saharan Africa, which was around $1.8 billion in 2010, is set to nearly triple to $5.3 billion by 2020. This is digital TV research. And I think it's going to go even higher than that because there's some pretty innovative solutions out there. Coming to Kenya, just to reiterate, I expect a sharp fall in oil prices. We'll see super petrol prices below 100 shillings per litre before year end, and I think this will be a powerful catalyst for consumer sentiment and improved spending. Kenya shilling 89.298. Nairobi oil share ticked 0.22% lower yesterday. It's up 15.923% year to date, but has corrected 4.202% since reaching a record high on the 23rd of September. NSE 20 is up 5.52% year to date, but has corrected 207.5 points since closing at a more than 6-year high on the 22nd of September. There is a link at the bottom of Rich Wrap-Ups if you want to interrogate any listed share. And let me sign off by mentioning that Chandaria firm has paid off 1 billion shillings of bondholders early. They were downgraded or threatened with a downgrade by the ratings agency. So obviously they've made an effort to improve their rating. Once again, thank you for stopping by.